Hi guys and welcome back to another video. Today we're looking at Shadow Warrior 3 and the minimum and recommended system requirements. So let's get straight into it. And one time we're going to start off with the minimum system requirements and we're looking at the processors and CPUs needed to run the game. On the minimum we have the AMD Phenom 2X4 96.5 CPUs and the Intel Core i5 3470s. For the minimum and the recommended, we have the AMD Ryzen 2700 and the Intel Core i7 6950X. And you may have heard a small laugh, but that is a 10 core 20 thread CPU. So I highly doubt this game is going to use that. I am very apprehensive to think that this game is optimized to fully tax 10 cores 20 threads. That's not seeming very likely. And this is a wonderful thing for it's very kind to old systems, as I saw one article online put it. This is really good for a lot of us who have older systems, a lot of gamers who don't have the latest and greatest. I know a lot of people are still running quad cores, and most of you are on quad cores with hyper threading. So I'm assuming everybody who is on an i7 2600 2700, um, the 2700K, the 2600K, I mean, the 4770, the 3770, the 6700, the 7700K, you all should be more than wonderfully fine using those CPUs and equivalent CPUs to them. Now, what I'm a little apprehensive about in the recommended is that they went up to a 20 thread CPU, a 10 core 20 thread CPU, and the Ryzen 7 2700X, and they put 8 cores. But the 2700X does not have the fastest IPC, and it doesn't have the lowest latency between core to core. Oh, sorry about that stutter. And on the minimum side, they are targeting 30 FPS at low graphical settings at 1080p, and on the recommended, they are targeting 60 FPS at high settings at 1080p. Now, the difference between the CPUs, I think most people in the gaming industry on PC side should be fine. Most of you are running quad cores with hyperthreading according to the Steam hardware survey. I know a lot of people don't like to use the Steam hardware survey in their recommended videos, but I use them because it's the largest aggregate of data we have to at least have an idea of what the average person may or may not be using. I know this is not representative of everyone, but it's at least something to go off rather than just poking holes in the dark. So let's move on into the well, before we move on, let's just look at some notes I made. Now, this is from Hardware Unbox, and they were running a 6 game average in 2020 using some older CPUs and seeing how they perform. As you can see, the 2700X, the 3300X, the 7700K, the 9400F, the first gen Ryzen clocked at 3.9, the Ryzen 5 2600, the 1700, they're all within spitting distance of each other. Yes, the new and higher level chips perform well, but as you can see, the Ryzen 3 3300X, which is a 4-core 8-thread CPU, and the 2700X are pretty much trading blows, and this is using a 2080 Ti at 1080p. So I assume most of you will be fine if you're running for Shadow Warrior 3. If you're running a Ryzen 5 1600, 1600AF, you should be pretty much fine. Now, most of you have 16 gigabytes of RAM. 8 gigabytes is recommended to run the game. Obviously, with 16 gigabytes, you should be fine. That's not a big worry. The graphic card is very much low end on the minimum side. They are looking at an R7 2600X and the GTX 760. Now, the GTX 760 is outdated, and I'm not sure if Kepler support has ended, but Kepler support might have been ended. But Kepler is very old, I know that much, and most people aren't using Kepler anymore. As you can see, if you come down, most people are on the 1060, the 1650, the 1050i, the 2060, the 1050, the 1660 Ti, 1660 Super, 1070. Yeah, you're all fine. We could already establish that. So let's look at what they're saying on the minimum. They're looking for low settings using 1080p 30 FPS. So if you have a GTX 1060 I am assuming, given that the 1060 is vastly more powerful than this and it has 6 gigabytes of VRAM, you should be able to get an average of 60 FPS at low settings at 1080p. Now, depending on how the settings scale, that is something you will have to test as you play the game. I will be testing the game with my 1650 Super and GTX 1080 Ti, so I'm hoping to at least get 60 FPS at 1080p on both those cards. Obviously, the 1080 Ti is a lot stronger. Now, the recommended, they are using high settings, and they are saying they want an RX 5700 and a GTX 1080 Ti. Yes, the GTX 1080 Ti, not 1080 Ti, the GTX 1080, I'm sorry about that. The GTX 1080 is a lot more powerful than a 760, so that's a fairly big gap with high settings. So I'm assuming there's going to be some settings in there that are very, very demanding, and most likely if you put them to low to medium, you should be able to get 60 FPS fine. Those probably are going to be more like your reflections or something fancy like that. I don't think it's going to be necessary for the game. Now, the only thing that is a bit concerning is that they have specified the VRAM, and the VRAM for high settings is 8 gigabytes. Now, that usually means that the high textures, we are assuming here, by the way, high textures may be taking advantage of 8 gigabyte allocation. So for most of you on 6 and 4 gig cards, you may want to turn down your texture settings, as you see, because you don't want your graphic card choking on your VRAM. I hope this video has been helpful to you. If you have any questions or comments, please leave it down in the section below. I hope that you all have a good time. If you're interested in picking up Shadow Warrior, it is on Steam, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Please like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any questions on what I think about the upcoming game, please leave them in the comment section below. Thank you very much and have a nice day.